Hello, my friend. Welcome. Tonight we're going to explore one of the most elusive forces in our lives, a flame so fragile that it flickers at the smallest gust, yet so powerful that it shapes destinies. Willpower. Why is it that we so often promise ourselves, we'll change, we'll do better, we'll resist, and then, when the moment arrives, we surrender? Why do our hands reach for the cookie when our heart longs for health? Why do our lips break promises, even when our soul aches to keep them? This book by Baumeister and John Tierney invites us into that mystery, offering not just explanations, but a mirror to our struggles, and perhaps, a lantern to light the way forward. If you find this summary helpful, don't forget to like this video, subscribe to BookSnap, and comment below the title of the book you'd like us to summarize next. We'll make it happen soon. Now let us begin our journey. Picture this. You're standing at the threshold of a new year. A fresh calendar lies before you, its pages blank with promise. You feel the fire of resolve burning in your chest. You whisper to yourself, "This time, it will be different. This time, I'll keep the promise." For a while, it works. The gym welcomes your footsteps. The budget holds tight. The cigarettes remain untouched. And then, almost without warning, a quiet unraveling begins. A late night turns into two. A single purchase balloons into many. You reach for the thing you swore off, and before you know it, the flame of resolve sputters out. What happened? Baumeister and Tierney argue that the answer lies in understanding willpower not as a vague moral quality, but as a real, limited energy. Just like a muscle, it tires with use. Just like fuel, it runs out when spent too often. You may begin the day with strength, ready to fight off distractions and temptations. But with each decision, each restraint, each small battle fought inside your mind, you are draining an invisible reservoir. By evening, when you face your greatest challenges, that reservoir's running dry. Think of a candle burning in a room. At first, the flame is strong, casting light across the walls. But hour by hour, the wax dwindles, the wick shortens, and the glow weakens. If you demand the same brightness at midnight as you did at dawn, you'll be disappointed. The flame has limits, and so does your willpower. Yet here's the paradox. We tend to judge ourselves harshly when we fail. We imagine weakness of character, a flaw in our spirit. But Baumeister's research suggests something more merciful. Failure often isn't proof of moral collapse, but of energy depletion. You're not broken. You're human. And your willpower, like any flame, requires care if it is to last. This realization is liberating. It means that self-control is not some mystical gift reserved for the few, but a resource that can be understood, managed, and strengthened. Imagine if you stopped blaming yourself and instead started managing your willpower as you would your money or your time. Imagine seeing it not as an infinite well, but as a precious currency to be spent wisely. As you begin to see this truth, the world looks different. That fight with your partner at the end of the day? Perhaps it wasn't about love lost, but about willpower drained. That shopping spree after a long afternoon of resisting cookies, emails, and deadlines? Not weakness, but depletion. You begin to recognize the fragile flame, flickering within you, as the hidden architect of your daily victories and defeats. But here's the wonder. Just as a muscle grows stronger when trained, so too does willpower. This book is not just a diagnosis of our struggles, but a map toward mastery. It teaches us that by conserving, restoring, and wisely applying willpower, we can not only keep our resolutions but transform our lives. And so, as we step into this journey together, remember the fragile flame. It is yours to guard, to nurture, to fuel. The secret of success is not just desire but discipline, not just passion, but patience. And willpower, delicate yet mighty, is the bridge between who you are and who you long to become. Think for a moment about the countless crossroads you face each day. You open your eyes in the morning, and immediately the choices begin. Do you stay in bed for another 10 minutes or rise now? Do you check your phone or leave it aside? Do you make coffee, tea, or none at all? Every one of these small decisions draws from the same hidden source, your willpower. We often imagine that self-control is summoned only at life's great tests, but Baumeister and Tierney show us that it is being quietly spent on even the smallest of choices, like drops of water leaking from a jar. They call this discovery the energy of choice. Each time you decide, resist, or redirect your behavior, a little bit of your inner strength is consumed. At first, you may not notice the loss, but as the hours pass, the drain accumulates, and suddenly your mind feels foggy, your patience thin, your resolve fragile. You may not know why you snapped at someone, why you clicked buy against your budget, or why you couldn't resist that sugary snack. But your willpower knows. It has been running on empty. Imagine carrying a backpack full of stones. At the start of the day, it feels manageable. With each decision you make, another stone is added. The weight builds, subtle at first, then pressing, then exhausting. By the time you're asked to carry something truly heavy, you no longer have the strength. This is the invisible burden of decision-making. Scientists studying this phenomenon placed people in simple experiments where they were forced to make repeated, trivial choices, like choosing between shirts or snacks. Later, when given a harder test of persistence, these same people gave up more quickly than those who had not been tasked with endless minor decisions. Their strength was already drained, not by crisis, but by the slow trickle of choice. Think about what that means in your own life. You might start a morning full of optimism, determined to eat clean, focus deeply, and stay calm. But after hours of juggling messages, errands, requests, and responsibilities, your mind begins to stumble. When temptation finally knocks, you are too weary to resist. It's not that you're weak, it's that you're tired. This realization is both humbling and empowering. It humbles us because it shows just how fragile our self-control can be, how quickly our fire dwindles. But it empowers us because it explains failure in a new light. It's not about shame, it's about strategy. If willpower is a finite resource, then the question becomes, how do you spend it wisely? Think of elite athletes. They do not waste energy before the race. They conserve, protect, and channel every ounce toward the finish line. You too must learn to recognize where your willpower is leaking away. Perhaps you are scattering it across trivial choices: what to wear, what to eat, when to act. Perhaps you are burning it on battles you could automate or avoid. The art of living wisely is not about fighting every fight, but about reserving strength for the ones that truly matter. And here lies the deeper invitation of the book: to live deliberately, to step out of the storm of endless micro-decisions and begin shaping life so that your willpower is saved for your highest purposes. This is why some of history's greatest minds, from Steve Jobs to Barack Obama, famously wore the same style of clothing daily. Not out of vanity, but out of wisdom. By reducing trivial choices, they preserved their energy for the decisions that would shape the world. So consider this. What if the reason you have not yet reached your greatest goal is not lack of desire, but lack of management of this invisible energy? What if you could re-engineer your life to protect your flame, to guide it toward the moments that matter most? The truth is simple, yet revolutionary. Willpower is energy. Choices consume it. And once you begin to honor that truth, you begin to see your days differently, not as random streams of effort, but as deliberate journeys of conservation and focus. Picture a small room in the late 1960s, a table, a chair, and in the center, on a white plate, a single marshmallow. A child is led in and asked to sit. The instructions are simple, almost cruel in their elegance. You may eat this marshmallow now, or, If you wait until I return, you'll get two. Then the adult leaves. Silence fills the room. The child stares at the sweet, the prize glowing under the fluorescent lights. Some children fold their arms and look away. They hum, sing, or cover their eyes, anything to resist the siren call of sugar. Others lean in close, sniffing, poking, nibbling at the edges. Some give in within seconds. Others wait, restless, determined, wriggling in their chairs until, finally, the door opens again. This experiment, so deceptively simple, became one of the most famous in psychology. Years later, researchers followed up with these children and found something extraordinary. Those who managed to wait, who delayed gratification for a greater reward, went on to have higher SAT scores, stronger social skills, and even healthier lives. The marshmallow had become a crystal ball. The ability to resist that small temptation foretold much about the arc of a life. But why? What made the difference between the child who gobbled the marshmallow and the one who waited? It wasn't intelligence, nor privilege, nor even luck. It was willpower, the strength to delay a small pleasure for a greater future gain. The flame that could be shielded long enough for the door to open again. Baumeister and Tierney revisit this story not as a curiosity, but as a profound lesson for us all. Because every day, each of us sits in that room. The marshmallow may look different. A cigarette, a glass of wine, a phone notification, a purchase waiting in the online cart. The same bargain whispers, "Take this now," or "Wait and receive more later." And in that choice lies the difference between progress and stagnation, between growth and regret. Yet the researchers also found something hopeful. Willpower is not a fixed trait. Children who struggled at first could learn strategies to resist. Covering their eyes, singing songs, distracting themselves with imagination. It wasn't about raw strength. It was about tactics. Self-control, like any skill, could be cultivated. And the more it was practiced, the stronger it became. Think about that in your own life. The marshmallow might be the snooze button on your alarm clock, the dessert calling after dinner, the impulse buy just a click away. You may have failed before, as all of us have. But the truth revealed by this simple test is that self-control can be trained. You can become the child who waits. You can strengthen your ability to delay gratification, and in doing so, alter the trajectory of your future. Imagine your life as a series of marshmallows. Each one offers an immediate, fleeting sweetness. But if you choose to wait, to hold back, to endure the itch of desire, then in time you reap something greater: health, wealth, mastery, freedom. The marshmallow test is not a story about candy. It is a story about the very architecture of human success. So when you next find yourself alone with temptation, remember that little room. Remember the children wriggling in their seats, some holding fast, some giving in. Remember that the difference was not destiny but discipline, not nature but nurture. You hold the same flame they did, and the question remains: can you wait for the second marshmallow? Have you ever noticed how you begin a day full of determination, only to watch it unravel with astonishing speed? You tell yourself in the morning, "I will be patient. I will eat clean. I will stay focused." And yet, by late afternoon, you've snapped at someone you love, raided the pantry, or abandoned your work. It feels like betrayal, as if some hidden saboteur lurks within you. Baumeister and Tierney call this invisible force ego depletion. The phrase may sound clinical, but its reality is deeply personal. Ego depletion is the slow erosion of self-control, the way small struggles wear us down until we have nothing left to give. Imagine a dam holding back water. Each temptation resisted, each impulse denied, is like a small crack forming in the structure. At first, the dam stands tall, but as the cracks spread, the pressure mounts. Eventually, with one more strain, the water bursts through, What looks like sudden collapse is really the result of hidden erosion. Researchers observed this in simple experiments. People asked to resist eating fresh cookies, while others enjoyed them, later performed worse on difficult tasks. Why? Their energy of self-control had already been consumed in saying no to the cookies. The same pattern repeats across countless situations. Every act of restraint, holding your tongue in a meeting, resisting the lure of a message, forcing yourself to focus on something boring, chips away at your reservoir of strength. By the time you face a major decision, the tank is already near empty. Ego depletion explains so much of what once felt mysterious. Why diets collapse in the evening, not the morning. Why tempers flare at night, after long days of restraint. Why addicts relapse after prolonged periods of resisting. Self-control is not a fixed state. It is a resource that diminishes as it is spent. Think of willpower as a candle again. But now notice how the flame consumes its own wax. Each flicker of resistance burns the very substance that sustains it. The more you fight, the more your flame weakens. This does not mean you are doomed to failure. It means you must learn to pace yourself, to guard your energy, to anticipate the moments when your flame runs low. Ego depletion also reveals a humbling truth. You cannot endlessly fight against yourself. The more you push, the weaker you become. And so the path to mastery is not endless struggle, but strategic renewal. Just as a runner pauses for water, you must pause to restore. Just as a warrior sharpens their blade, you must sharpen your mind. Self-control is not infinite. It is fragile, fleeting, and human. But here is the hope hidden within the science. If you understand that depletion is real, you stop interpreting failure as weakness. You stop saying, "I am broken," and begin saying, "I was tired." You stop believing that collapse is destiny, and begin believing it is a signal to rest. This shift alone is powerful. Instead of spiraling into shame, you begin to build strategies for renewal. And there is another layer of hope. Muscles grow stronger when exercised. The same is true of willpower. Though it depletes with use, it also adapts to challenge. Like a flame that flickers but grows brighter when tended, your self-control can become more resilient when trained thoughtfully. Each moment of restraint, each practice of patience, each step of discipline is not wasted, but an investment in greater strength for tomorrow. So when you think of your failures, the angry words you regret, the promise you broke, the temptation you gave into, do not see them as proof that you are weak. See them as cracks in the dam, reminders that your reservoir must be managed. You are not less human for depleting your willpower. You are fully human. And once you understand this hidden toll, you can begin to live with compassion for yourself and with wisdom about when to fight and when to rest. Imagine a weary judge sitting in a dim courtroom. The morning had begun with clarity. Cases reviewed, decisions delivered, reasoning sharp and deliberate. But now, hours later, the air feels heavy. The pile of files has grown thinner, but the weight of choices has thickened. Another prisoner stands before the bench, pleading for parole. Statistically, the odds are against him. Not because of his crime or his record, but because of something invisible. Decision fatigue. This is one of the most haunting lessons from Baumeister and Tierney's work. Every choice, no matter how small, extracts a toll. Just as muscles tremble after too many repetitions, the mind weakens after too many decisions. And when the reservoir runs dry, the brain falls back on shortcuts, defaulting to no, clinging to routine, choosing the easier path even if it's not the wiser one. That parolee in the late afternoon is not facing the judge's justice as much as the judge's exhaustion. We see this in our own lives too. Think about shopping. You walk into a store with clear intent to buy one item. Yet after navigating aisles, comparing prices, weighing options, and making micro-decisions, your willpower thins. By the time you reach the checkout, You toss in an impulse purchase, not because you needed it, but because your decision-making machinery had worn down. The energy to resist was gone. Decision fatigue explains why, at the end of long days, we collapse into the couch and surrender to the easiest pleasures, scrolling endlessly, eating mindlessly, watching without intention. It's not always laziness, it's exhaustion of a subtler kind. The flame of willpower has been burned down not by a single great test, but by the 1,000 tiny matches of the day. Consider how presidents, CEOs, and leaders across time have coped. Many of them strip away trivial choices to preserve their strength for critical ones. Barack Obama often wore only gray or blue suits. Steve Jobs was famous for his black turtlenecks. These weren't fashion statements. They were shields. By removing the need to decide what to wear, they saved their willpower for decisions that mattered most. Now reflect on your own days. How many choices drain you before you even confront your most important work? How many times do you force yourself through the gauntlet of trivialities, only to arrive at the true battlefield exhausted? The lesson is clear. To live wisely is to protect your decision-making energy as fiercely as your time or money. And yet, there is hope in this understanding. Once you name decision fatigue, you can begin to fight it strategically. You can build habits and routines that carry you forward without demanding constant choices. You can create rituals that free your mind from trivia. You can prepare in advance so that when the moment of true importance arrives, your flame is still bright. Think of your willpower as a precious lamp carried through the day. Each decision draws oil from its reservoir. If you let it leak endlessly, the lamp burns dim when night falls. But if you conserve it, if you shield it, if you direct it wisely, the lamp will shine when you need it most. So when you feel yourself faltering, remember, perhaps you are not broken. Perhaps you are simply fatigued. And the path forward is not to berate yourself, but to reorder your life so that your brightest light is reserved for the battles worthy of it. Think of the great cathedrals of Europe. For centuries they have stood, tall and unyielding, not because of the beauty of their stained glass or the power of their bells, but because of their scaffolding during construction, those hidden supports that bore the weight of ambition until the walls could stand on their own. Willpower, Baumeister and Tierney remind us, works the same way. Left alone, it falters. But surrounded by ritual and structure, it becomes steady, reliable, even graceful. Daily rituals are not cages. They are scaffolds. They take the fragile flame of willpower and protect it from the winds of chaos. When you create a morning routine, when you decide once and for all what you will eat for breakfast, when you map out your day the night before, you are building supports that keep your self-control from collapsing under the strain of constant decisions. Consider the soldier who shines his boots every dawn, even in war. The athlete who laces shoes the same way before every match. The writer who sits at the desk at the same hour, coffee cup in hand, regardless of mood. These rituals are not trivial. They are anchors. They turn self-control into something less fragile, because the behavior becomes automatic. When the body knows what to do, the mind spends less. Habits, too, act as invisible allies. The first time you resist a temptation, it may cost you dearly in willpower. The second time, still heavy. But the 100th time, it has become habit, and the cost is near zero. Imagine a train switching tracks. The first time, the lever is stiff and requires strength. But once the rails are aligned, the train glides effortlessly in the new direction. Rituals are the rails. Habits are the tracks. Together they make discipline less about fighting and more about flowing. The irony is that many of us resist structure. We think freedom lies in spontaneity. We believe rituals trap us. But the opposite is true. A life without ritual is a life of constant decision fatigue, constant battles with temptation, constant erosion of willpower. A life with ritual is one where our limited energy is conserved for the moments that matter most. True freedom lies not in chaos, but in order that supports us. Think of your own days. How often do you stumble not because of weakness, but because you left yourself unprotected? How often do you wake without a plan, eat without intention, work without rhythm, and then wonder why you are exhausted by noon? The absence of ritual is not liberation, it is exposure. It leaves your fragile flame to the mercy of the wind. But the good news is this: rituals can be built slowly and gently, one stone at a time. You don't need to erect a cathedral overnight. You begin by choosing one small ritual that shields your willpower, laying out clothes the night before, preparing tomorrow's meals, blocking time for your most important task first thing in the morning. Each ritual is a beam in the scaffolding. Over time, they form a structure strong enough to support great ambition. And here is the beauty of it all. Once rituals take root, they stop demanding willpower at all. They run on their own, like streams flowing downhill, like the rising of the sun. And then, instead of burning your flame to survive the day, you find your flame burning brighter, free to illuminate the work and dreams that truly matter. So when you think of discipline, do not picture a battle. Picture scaffolding around a fragile tower, growing stronger with each beam set in place. Your rituals are not chains. They are wings, and in their embrace, your willpower is no longer a frail flame, but a steady fire that can light the path ahead. Not to check your hair or clothes, but to observe your actions with unflinching honesty. Most of us live with a hazy picture of our habits. We think we know how much we eat, how much we spend, how often we work, but reality often tells another story. Baumeister and Tierney show us that the simple act of monitoring, of keeping track, is like polishing that mirror until the reflection becomes clear. And when you see yourself clearly, your willpower strengthens. Consider the dieter who keeps a food journal. At first it feels tedious, maybe even unnecessary. But as days pass, a strange shift occurs. The act of writing each bite forces awareness. That cookie doesn't vanish into forgetfulness. It's recorded. The tally grows, and with it comes accountability. The dieter doesn't just eat, they notice themselves eating. And in that noticing, temptation begins to loosen its grip. This is the hidden power of monitoring. It creates a pause, a gap between impulse and action. Instead of moving blindly, you become an observer of your own life. That pause is enough for willpower to slip in, like a hand on your shoulder, reminding you of the bigger picture. Think of debt. Many people spiral into financial chaos, not because of one extravagant purchase, but because of 1,000 small ones, unnoticed, uncounted. Yet the moment they begin tracking, every dollar in, every dollar out, the fog lifts. The spending doesn't magically disappear, but the awareness itself curbs excess. It's as if temptation fears the light of attention. The same is true for work, for health, for time. Students who monitor their study hours improve grades. Workers who log progress accomplish more. Even the simple act of wearing a step counter changes behavior. Not because the counter moves your feet, but because it shines a light on whether you are moving at all. Monitoring is not about shame. It is about clarity. It is not a whip, but a compass. Without it, you wander through life in the dark, surprised when you stumble. With it, you begin to see the patterns, the times of day when your flame burns low, the triggers that spark temptation, the routines that fuel your strength. Self-knowledge becomes self-control. But here lies the paradox. Many of us avoid monitoring because we fear what we will see. We prefer the comfort of ignorance to the sting of truth. Yet Baumeister and Tierney remind us that the sting of truth is precisely what sets us free. To face the mirror is to reclaim power. To measure is to master. So imagine this. Your life is a series of dials on a dashboard. Some flicker in the red, others glow green. Most go unnoticed. By tracking, you are not punishing yourself. You are watching the dials, adjusting before the engine overheats, before the fuel runs out. Without that dashboard, you drive blind. With it, you steer with wisdom. Willpower is fragile? Yes. But when paired with self-awareness, it becomes resilient. Monitoring is the practice of turning a foggy guess into a sharp picture. And in that picture, you find both the cause of your struggles and the seeds of your strength. So ask yourself, where are you blind? What area of your life do you avoid tracking because you fear the truth? That is where your flame flickers most. And that is where, if you dare to look, your willpower will find its fiercest ally. Close your eyes for a moment and picture willpower not as an abstract force, but as a living body. It hungers, it tires, it needs nourishment. Baumeister and Tierney discovered something that seems almost embarrassingly simple, yet profoundly important. Self-control is tied to glucose, the very fuel coursing through your blood. When the body's energy dips, so too does the mind's ability to resist, focus, and endure. Think of a long afternoon meeting. You haven't eaten since lunch, and the hours drag on. At first, you stay attentive, nodding, following along. But as your stomach empties and your blood sugar falls, focus grows slippery. Irritation rises. You check your phone. You want to quit. Your willpower hasn't vanished. It has been starved. This is not weakness. It is biology. Just as a car sputters when the gas runs low, your willpower falters when your body is underfueled. Scientists proved this in experiments where people performed worse on tests of self-control when hungry, and better after a simple dose of sugar. The fragile flame depends on fuel. But here lies a deeper truth. Not all fuel burns the same. A rush of candy may give a spark, but it fades quickly, leaving you drained again. Real, steady nourishment, proteins, complex carbs, balanced meals, provide the slow-burning energy that sustains willpower across the long haul. The lesson is clear. You cannot expect to fight life's battles on an empty tank. And yet, how often do we try? How often do we launch into demanding days, skipping breakfast, skimming meals, numbing our bodies with caffeine while expecting our minds to stay sharp and disciplined? The flame may flicker valiantly for a time, but eventually, it bows to the laws of energy. This is why the path to stronger willpower is not only mental but physical. Sleep, diet, exercise. They are not luxuries but foundations. A tired body produces a tired mind. A starved body breeds a starved will. To strengthen discipline, you must honor the vessel that carries it. Consider the runner preparing for a marathon. They do not show up empty and expect sheer determination to carry them through 26 miles. They eat, hydrate, train, and pace themselves. You, too, must prepare for the marathons of your own life, the exams, the deadlines, the temptations, the conversations that test your patience. If you would not run on empty legs, why try to live on an empty flame? This truth reframes self-control as something deeply human, deeply embodied. You are not a mind floating above flesh. You are a creature of both. Your willpower lives in your cells, your muscles, your bloodstream. To care for the body is to care for the mind. To eat wisely, to rest deeply, to move daily. These are not distractions from discipline. They are discipline. So the next time you feel your resolve crumble, pause before you condemn yourself. Ask instead, have I eaten? Have I slept? Have I moved my body? The answers may reveal that your failure was not of spirit, but of fuel. And once you see this, you no longer curse the flame for flickering. You learn to feed it, to tend it, to honor it. And in doing so, you give your willpower the strength it was always meant to have. Picture yourself walking past a bakery in the late afternoon. The air is thick with the smell of fresh bread and sugar-glazed pastries. You weren't even hungry until this moment, but suddenly the craving rises like a tide. You glance at the window, golden croissants glistening, cakes dusted with powdered sugar, cookies stacked in neat rows. A voice inside whispers, "Just one. You've earned it." Another voice argues back, "No, you promised yourself." And there you are, caught in temptation's dance. Baumeister and Tierney describe temptation not as a rare enemy, but as a constant partner in life, pulling us into a rhythm of desire and resistance. Procrastination, indulgence, distraction. These are not accidents. They are temptations dressed in different clothes. Each offers the sweetness of now at the cost of later. Each tests the fragile flame of willpower. But here's what the research shows. Temptation is not only external, it is also internal. The marshmallow on the plate is powerful, yes, but what makes it irresistible is the story you tell yourself. Just this once. I'll start tomorrow. It won't matter. These thoughts grease the slide toward surrender. The real dance happens in the mind, where justifications swirl until the step into indulgence feels almost inevitable. So how do we resist? The answer is not brute force, because brute force burns quickly. The key lies in strategies, subtle moves in the dance. Some people succeed by avoiding the ballroom altogether. They stay out of the bakery, remove apps from their phone, clear the house of cigarettes or candy. Others change the music. They distract themselves, shift attention, or reframe the temptation as less appealing. A cookie becomes not a treat but a trap. The snooze button becomes not comfort but theft of the morning. One of the most powerful strategies is known as pre-commitment. Imagine Odysseus, who had his sailors tie him to the mast so he could hear the siren's song without succumbing. In modern life, pre-commitment might mean locking away credit cards to avoid impulse buys, using apps that block distractions during work hours, or telling a friend your goal so the weight of accountability keeps you steady. The secret is to make the choice while strong, before temptation strikes, so that when the dance begins, the steps are already decided. Another strategy is to build small victories. Each time you resist temptation, you strengthen the muscle of willpower. The more you practice saying no in small things, the easier it becomes to say no in larger ones. It's like rehearsing moves until the dance no longer surprises you. But perhaps the most profound insight is this: temptation never fully vanishes. The bakery will always be there, in one form or another. The lure of procrastination, the call of indulgence, the glow of distraction, they are woven into the fabric of life. The goal is not to banish temptation, but to learn its rhythm, to anticipate its steps, to respond with grace instead of collapse. And when you fail, as all of us do, the lesson is not despair but awareness. Failure reveals where your flame was weakest, where your strategy faltered, where you must prepare differently next time. Each stumble is feedback, each indulgence a teacher. So the next time you find yourself standing at the bakery window, or staring at your phone when you should be working, or reaching for the thing you swore you'd resist, remember this truth: you are not alone in the dance. All of humanity sways to this rhythm. The difference between those who stumble and those who stride lies not in temptation's absence, but in how they learn to move with it. Deep inside each of us lies a compass, pointing towards something larger than comfort or convenience. Baumeister and Tierney show us that when willpower is tethered to purpose, its flame grows brighter, steadier, more resilient. Without purpose, self-control feels like endless denial, a grim refusal of pleasures. With purpose, denial becomes devotion, and restraint becomes fuel for something greater. Think of the student burning midnight oil to study for an exam. If the goal is vague, I should do well, fatigue crushes quickly. But if the goal is vivid, I want to become a doctor to heal lives. The long hours become sacrifice with meaning. Purpose transforms exhaustion into endurance. Consider Viktor Frankl, the psychiatrist who survived concentration camps and wrote Man's Search for Meaning. He observed that those who lived longest were not the strongest physically, but those who clung to a why. A dream to fulfill, a loved one to return to, a reason to keep walking through the snow. The body bowed, but the flame of purpose burned fiercely. Willpower feeds on meaning. In our daily lives, the same principle holds. Diets built only on restriction crumble, but diets tied to a vision of health, vitality, or being present for one's children endure. Budgets that exist only to save money falter, but budgets tied to the dream of freedom or security thrive. The difference is not in discipline, but in direction. Purpose does more than strengthen us. It clarifies our choices. When you know what you are building toward, temptations lose some of their shine. That pastry is not just sugar. It is a thief of energy you need for your purpose. That impulse buy is not just a toy. It is a delay in the freedom you're fighting for. The marshmallow no longer exists in isolation. It exists in contrast to your dream, and here is where long-term goals enter. Humans are storytellers, wired to live not just in the moment, but across time. When you anchor your self-control to a narrative of your future, you gain power. Each act of restraint becomes a step in the story. Each sacrifice a line in the script of your becoming. Think of a mountain climber. The air thins, the muscles ache, the temptation to stop grows louder. But the vision of the summit, the purpose, gives strength when oxygen alone is not enough. You too are climbing. Your summit may be health, love, mastery, freedom, or contribution. Without that summit in mind, each step feels like drudgery. With it, each step becomes triumph. But perhaps the greatest gift of purpose is this: it unites willpower with joy. Self-control no longer feels like punishment, but participation in something sacred. Saying no to temptation becomes saying yes to meaning. And in that yes, the fragile flame grows into a steady fire. So pause and ask yourself, what is the summit you are climbing? What is the story you are writing? Without an answer, your willpower will flicker and fade. With an answer, your willpower will draw strength from the deepest well of all, the human hunger for purpose. At the heart of this journey lies a simple but profound truth. Willpower is not about deprivation, but creation. It is not merely the act of saying no. It is the art of saying yes to a fuller, freer life. Baumeister and Tierney lead us here, to the place where discipline and joy meet, the rebuilt self. Think back to the image of the fragile flame. In the beginning, it flickered uncertainly, vulnerable to every gust of temptation and fatigue. But over time, as you've learned to conserve energy, to build rituals, to monitor yourself, to fuel your body, to resist temptation with strategy, and to anchor your choices to purpose, that flame has transformed. No longer fragile, it is steady. No longer weak, it is luminous. It does not simply survive the winds. It lights the path forward. The rebuilt self is not someone who never falters. You will still stumble, still feel temptation, still face depletion. But the rebuilt self understands these moments, anticipates them, and rises from them with compassion instead of shame. Failure is no longer a verdict but feedback. Each relapse is not proof of weakness but an invitation to adjust. You are no longer at the mercy of your impulses, because you know their language, their rhythm, their tricks. This is freedom, not the false freedom of doing whatever you please in the moment, but the deeper freedom of living as you choose over a lifetime. To build the body you want, the relationships you cherish, the career you envision, the legacy you long for. Willpower, trained and tended, becomes the quiet architect of this freedom. And here's the wonder: the rebuilt self is contagious. When you live with steady self-control, others feel it. Your children watch your rituals and absorb them. Your friends notice your patience, your persistence, your clarity. You become a beacon, proving that discipline is not drudgery but liberation. In a world where so many are lost in temptation's dance, your steady flame offers light. But above all, the rebuilt self is a promise to yourself that you will no longer live blind to the energy that guides you, that you will treat your willpower not as a mystery, but as a resource, precious, trainable, renewable, that you will carry your flame with care, not squandering it on battles unworthy of it, but saving it for the dreams that define you. So as this journey closes, imagine yourself standing once more in that small room, the marshmallow on the plate before you. You are no longer the child wriggling, helpless, uncertain. You are the adult who knows that waiting, choosing, persisting is not suffering, it is sculpting. And each act of willpower is another stroke of the chisel shaping the life you were meant to live. The fragile flame has become a steady fire, and with it, you can build a life of strength, clarity, and meaning, clarity and meaning, clarity and meaning, clarity and meaning, clarity and meaning.